The following show is intended for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Well, hello. Welcome to Coffee with the Johns.
Mic check, 1, 2.
Wow.
God, I can't make a joke without you guys being like, "Oh, we're good." Oh, no, you don't need to do that. Like, damn.
Wow.
Like what the DJs do. 1, 2. Even
But
though I
you're
know it's
not
good.
a DJ though.
I look like one.
Yes, you do look scratched. March 26, 2021. Welcome to Coffee with the Johns. If you have not joined us before, this is a show where we cover all of the breaking news and headlines that affect your business, real estate investing, and help you make sense of the madness that is
And your overall
2021.
life. Yes, John is drinking the right coffee this morning. Claire, we made sure of that. And then he tried to blame me. He's like, "Yeah, because you can't read."
Thanks,
like,
honey, for caring.
I'm not the one.
Nobody
that
else
grabbed the
cares
wrong
about me
coffee.
here. With that being said, some of the topics we're going to cover today, we're going to cover how the new tax plan is, Biden tax plan is going after small businesses, how the government is pretty much, in my opinion, declaring war on real estate investors, and a lot of other interesting news that's affecting the San Antonio and Texas. It's affecting real estate throughout the country, and some really interesting business news. And obviously, a lot of it's got to do with politics. So, with that being said, I'm your host, John Barbera, and with me, as always, is the co-host, Mr. John Barr.
The better looking.
Sure. How's it going, sir?
Good.
Good week?
Yeah.
Busy week.
Yeah, busy week. Good weather, except for one day. It was raining in Jersey, but finally it's like normalizing around the 70, 80s. The sun's coming out more, less rain, getting green out from the storm. Everything's coming back to life. A couple plants died, but a lot of them actually came back pretty well.
Well, I mean, it's Texas, so it's not, it's weeds. So, I mean, that shit just you can't kill that crap. So,
Aloe vera plants are weeds.
Yeah, all these, what they call trees here, we in New York, we just cut them down with our lawnmowers.
I'd love to see you cut a live oak, a 50-year-old live oak down with a lawnmower.
But we wanted to kind of get started with some of the stuff that we've been doing here within our business. So we just picked up a nice little package deal of 4 properties, and they're going to be rental properties. And one thing that we found very interesting is before we would list it on the MLS, the MLS would send it out to pretty much syndicate it everywhere. But now Zillow is charging you to have a listing on there. So you list our property. So you want to just go ahead and explain that?
I listed one a couple weeks ago, and I look at the comps, and I was like, well, let me push these a little bit, see what we can do. The comps were like $1,350. I was like, let me see if I can get $1,400. There's no inventory. Put it on the MLS and had like 2 showings over like 2 weeks. It's like, oh man, I really overshot this. This is gonna suck to get this thing rented because I mean it's sitting there vacant. It's not producing income, and there's a mortgage against it. And I get on Zillow, and I'm like, it's not on Zillow. Like, I'm not seeing the analytics there. I didn't know what was going on. And then it says activate listing for $9.99 a week. I was like, oh, Zillow makes you freaking pay now? Like, damn. So it wasn't on the internet. It was just the MLS, just to agents. Like you couldn't find it. I mean, you can find it on realtor.com, but who searches for rental properties on realtor.com?
Yeah.
And as soon as I paid that $9.99, my inbox, my phone just started blowing up. And like I raised the price because I had lowered the price on the MLS down to $13.50 because it'd been taking so long. I was like, shit, this sucks. So then I put it down to $13.50, still really no showings. And then like 2 days later, I found the Zillow listing. Or the Zillow thing, and then I paid for it, put it on the MLS, and it just, my phone blew up. My email inbox blew up of people wanting to do it. Like the Zillow thing started request, and I bumped the price back up to $1,400 on that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. And then I had somebody find it through there, and I sent them, and like within basically 36 hours of being on the on Zillow, had a good tenant, qualified, income, everything verified through them. They went through the background check on Zillow and was good to go. And so that was just like, oh my God,
Well,
Zillow's.
and that's really what you and I were talking about at first. We're like, damn it, there goes Zillow charging and everything, but at the same time, the reach that you get on
You
Zillow
have to.
is tremendous.
And then it's one of the things, somebody like you mentioned it, some other people mentioned it, that I'm surprised it took them this long to do. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. Because if you priced it right, especially here in San Antonio, like, dude, gone. Like it was rented and it was through the roof. And then it's also, okay, not $10 a week. But then I look at it like, well, every time I've listed with an agent, or like you're paying a half of your first month's rent anyways, I save my half, but I'd still lose at $1,350.
Yeah.
So you're still there almost, what's that, 10, 9, 8, 9 weeks that, or you'd get that break even being listed on Zillow 2 months worth. So, and then we had a second property from this package deal I put on the MLS, and I put that sucker on the MLS, and within 12 hours, we had a tenant at the 1,400 of another property. It was just like, my God. And he went through the whole program, had everything, because he'd obviously already applied through Zillow and paid for the application through that. So when you go through Zillow, the tenant has to pay for the background check. I think it's like $30 or something like that. But I'm pretty sure at that point they can go to multiple houses and just submit that application over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's actually pretty thorough. I wasn't mad at what information that it pulled and gave me. I still had them fill out a check form because there's authorization to reach out to prior landlords in there that I do like. And that information is in there. But it made it so much simpler to where I had a tenant want to give me like the like $60 for the processing the application. But afterwards, I was too busy. I was like, you know what? Just keep the money, go to Zillow, fill out the application through there. I'll get it, so that way I don't have to go through putting all the information, do the verifications and stuff like that. You do it. And then I just gave her the $60 back. I was like, I'm not trying to get rich off of.
No, of course. I mean,
$60.
a $60 application fee is nothing. It's just, it's to your point, the convenience that Zillow provides, and then the reach that Zillow provides, and then
That was ridiculous.
like you talked about before, one of the biggest benefits from Zillow is the fact that you bypass the agents, because if you list on the MLS, now you have an agent representing a renter, right? So that's a fee that goes to them. Where now it's like the renter just comes straight to you.
Yeah, it really was quite convenient. And like, I know here in Texas we have a massive housing shortage, and like everybody's moving here. That could be one of the first topics, but
Yeah, go ahead.
it was just like we have a very shortage demand to where like you just put something in the market, if it's good, clean, it's like it's gone.
Yeah.
Like, and to the point like where we priced both of these houses higher than what the comps were on the MLS. But then now I'm also thinking like, so now how do you get comps for your rental prices? Because nobody's listing on the MLS anymore. Zillow doesn't give you the ability to backdate to see what things rented for.
Yeah.
So it's like I just throw a number out there and guess.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's like that either, right? There is a process where what we'd like to do is we look at what is on the market. So yeah, you're not going to see what's been rented, but you see what's available.
Yeah.
So when we start doing at least that analysis and we see, all right, what does our competition actually even look like?
Yeah. I mean, you have
and
to
you're
do it that
seeing
way.
that there is no competition, there is no properties on the market. This is why we listed that property Friday morning ish, and that day somebody already reached out, came to look at it that afternoon, and it was done. For that property on.
That was this week, dude. Friday. It wasn't last week.
Oh, that was this week.
That was like
I don't
Tuesday.
know why.
That was like Tuesday or like
to
Wednesday.
me, it's always Fridays.
Yeah, like we closed on these properties on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I put the listing. You went and took pictures of the property Wednesday
morning. We
and
listed it.
I listed it, and then Wednesday afternoon you showed it, and I had a confirmed qualified tenant that night.
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm saying. Like, but the same reason. Like, you look at what's available in the market. What's we looked at the radius, and you look at what's available, and there's nothing available. Like, well, there you go. I mean,
that's what's still even crazy. Is like there was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 200 square feet larger. This is a 1,000 square feet, and it was listed for $1,450. So I was like, oh, we're a little cheaper than that $1,400. And the second I listed that thing, just flooded with stuff. I was like, oh my God.
Well, people like us. Well, this guy did. It was funny.
He really checked all our stuff out.
He looked us up online and social media. He's like, I like what you guys do. And I was like, and that's why I tell people it helps to have an online presence.
Yeah.
But
one of the articles I could put on here, like as far as like who's like moving here and why we have such a massive shortage, it was an article from CNBC, and like it was literally called the Texas Boom. The Governor Economic Development and Tourism Office said in September that there's been a tremendous increase in companies reaching out since the pandemic hit, with 237 relocations or expansion projects currently in the works. And this article was dated this week. So this is still going on. Then, like they said, even though the Texas freeze happened, it hasn't put a dent in people wanting to move to Texas. As an Oracle moved its headquarters to Austin, Texas last year, Tesla is also building a new gigafactory there, and Apple will house its second largest campus in Texas in the capital city. The big tech influence has raised chatter about Texas potentially becoming a business hub that could rival Silicon Valley. CBRE and Charles Schwab relocated their headquarters from California to Dallas area in the recent months, and Hewlett Packard Enterprise is heading to Houston. Texas has also attracted wealthy individuals like Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, Dropbox CEO Drew Houston, and Palantir co-founder Joe Longsdale. But it's not just big business and wealthy who are moving to Texas in 2020. In 2020, Texas added more residents than any other state. So,
And we also have the NASDAQ that was talking about relocating to Texas as well. What I don't know if you said, but it was either, I want to say it was Goldman Sachs or one.
Goldman Sachs.
What did I say?
Goldman Sachs.
Same thing.
No.
Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, I was like, no, Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs is also thinking about, relocating from their headquarters and all that and moving. I
believe.
Yeah.
Well, it's also one of the things they're talking about, like trying to tax every transaction that they do and to try to raise revenue in New York. And they just straight up said, you do that, we're gone. Like you can tell, like they're already on the brink of losing a lot of big people. So they got to really step lightly of what they do and what they go after.
Well, on that note, I actually have an article here that was sent to me by a director Dre, and it's New York City billboard rips Biden's proposed tax hike for small businesses, saying not on our watch.
New York put that up there?
Yeah, a billboard in New York City. New York didn't put it up, but there's a billboard in New York City.
I'm surprised they didn't rip it down.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that it's even up. But you have HM Manufacturing President Nicole Walter warned the tax hikes would be a really bad call. We're just getting out of COVID lockdowns, and it's hurting small businesses more than ever. So raising taxes would be the worst possible situation. Then you have Job Creators Network, a small business advocacy organization. They're the ones that actually put up the billboard. And it says, the billboard says this: Biden wants to raise taxes on small businesses. And continues, hell no, not on our watch. It also directs readers to the website dedicated to tracking the number of jobs Biden's policies have put at risk, according to them, to the Job Creator Network. So,
well, I mean, that's sort of thing. I love when it's like, oh, tax the rich, tax the well, tax the big corporations. Like, who do you think supports small businesses? Like, you start taxing all these big corporations, they stop investing in R&D. They stop spending. They stop giving wages because their money is now going to the government. Or it's like you're going to have a trickle-down effect of that. Or they say, oh, the trickle-down doesn't affect of wealth. Okay, debatable. But the trickle-down effect of taxes will impact.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You start taxing $400,000 people, it's like their discretionary income. They stop spending. They stop going to small boutique businesses that are small businesses. You just suck that money out of the economy and throw it into the conglomerate of the government. Yeah, it's going to disappear and it's not going to go anywhere. And that's where I love the tax the rich thing. And we've had several conversations about it. It's like, okay, wealthier people pay more and then somebody doesn't make as much. I agree with that. But when you start taxing people like they're talking about doing, it's like you're just going to suck money out of the economy in a massive way. So, I mean, it's 100% true. And like, I like that they're attaching it to job statistics of what's going on with the new administration, because like immediately day one, when he canceled all those gas leases and the pipelines, like there was 20 or 40,000 jobs that were just canceled and lost.
Yeah. I mean, the thing was, what I find kind of ironic is that they criticize the businesses for doing what the government does. The government gets into shit, prints a fuck ton of money, and then, oh, okay, we're going to tax the people, make them pay for it. You understand? Let the people take care of those bills and all of our terrible policies. And what do big companies do? The same exact thing. You raise taxes. You tax them more. You do all these things. you're causing these companies to say the same thing. We're going to increase the cost of our goods. We're going to, instead of giving these raises, we're not going to give those raises. Instead of hiring more people, we're not going to hire more people because now our expenses went way the
I was
hell
like,
up.
you fire one person, so now instead of having 3 people to do this job, and it's a 3-person job, it's like, well, either I fire you all and eliminate you, or I fire one of you and 2 of you have to pick up slack for 3.
Yeah, so now quality of life goes down the toilet in those companies because now one person's having to do the job of 3 and probably for the same pay. I mean, that's the stuff that I would love to be able to sit down with these people and just ask them, like, explain to me, where does this make sense to you? Because I'm curious, right? Yeah, are we missing something? Like, I'm really curious on that. Like, are we?
It's a good fit. They won't do that. They're good people. They wouldn't do that thing. Oh, they're ethical.
Yeah, and the thing
That's
is, like, what they're trying to cater to is the more uneducated, lower class people, that the lower income people that read the headlines and they're like, tax the rich? Hell yeah, screw those people. These rich people, these fat cats, screw them, all this. You are the one that's actually getting screwed by this because now you got to pay those inflated prices. You're the one that's probably going to get fired. You're the one that's going to take the brunt of all that.
Yeah.
Now, what I do believe is, like, we should get some tax reform where it's like, if you're going to give tax benefits, tax credits to a large corporation, how do you guarantee trickle down? By making those tax credits tied to growth of company and not to stock buybacks and to big payouts to the executive staff.
Yeah, I agree right there. Like, you limit those things. Where does where's the cash go?
Yeah.
These benefits they're getting. It's like you have the thing that, like, backfired on them when they were going to. We talked about this last week of making corporate executives pay public, because they thought, oh, well, if the public sees that, they're going to feel bad. They're going to get angry, so they'll bring their executive compensation down. It was like, no, that all became a competition of who's getting paid more to work at certain companies and look at their stock prices so they can argue, I deserve a $35 million a year salary. Like, there's something that you can actually attack.
Yeah.
And say, no. If you're getting these benefits, you need to pay less than this, or you need to pay your bottom line workers X number of dollars or something like that. Control that, not just say, we're just going to tax your income so the government can have it and do as they see fit. Because we did print a ton of money this last year.
Oh, yeah.
And some of it obviously necessary, some of it debatable, and where that all went. But so I do agree that, like, yeah, we do need to pay for that at some point and bring down the debt levels. But that's not what they're talking about doing.
Yeah.
Like, they're passed all this money, printed all this money, and now they're talking raise taxes so they can borrow and print more money for a $2 trillion infrastructure plan.
What's funny when you say, whether that money was necessary, is debatable and all this. What's his Sanders? His thing is like, X amount of the population lives below the poverty line. They live paycheck to paycheck. They have no savings. All of this. True. Stats back it. True. Yet, stimulating the sneaker economy, it's interesting to see where Americans are spending their stimulus checks. A lot of these people are living paycheck to paycheck because they're choosing to live paycheck to paycheck. Now, don't freak out and have your, panties all twisted up. I'm not saying everybody. Some people do have it really hard and their only option is to live paycheck to paycheck. But what I'm talking about is this other percentage. So the newly somewhat rich, by $1,400 anyway, are buying sneakers and apparel according to the data from Bank of America Global Research. Combined spending on apparel and athletic footwear jumped 20% year over year for the week ending in March 13th. Want a recent comparison about how about the fact that with the same parameters, that spending was up only 13% a week prior. So a week prior, it was only up 13% year over year, and it jumped up to 20% as soon as the stimulus checks started hitting people's bank accounts. And then you have this company called Mojo.com poll. It polled some people, and they say, if I can, I'd also like to pay off my credit card debt. It's small and maybe get ahead on utilities and phone accounts. If I can, I also like to do it. But most of the people are spending it on crap. They're not spending it on their debt. They're not spending it on their rent. They're not spending it on
No,
any of that.
they're gambling in places like sneakers. They're gambling in Bitcoin. They're gambling in the GameStop mega mania for chasing what's hot and what's not. These NFTs that are just like everybody's coming out with anything for these NFTs, and it's just like that's where the money. I think a lot of the money is going when it's like, yeah, when you just dump money to people that aren't used to having it, like their lifestyle goes up for a short period of time, and they spend it on things that just on commodities. The spender nation. That's exactly consumer nation is what the United States is. You give consumers money, they're not going to save, they're not going to invest, they're going to go consume it and buy stuff that doesn't
But
actually advance their life.
and the biggest point with all of this is that you have, Sanders and that other lady, the one that's 1/1700th Indian, yeah, all saying we gotta help the poor, we gotta help the low income, we gotta help. But you're seeing that you giving them money does absolutely nothing to help them. What these people are lacking is education, is access to the resources that can help them understand where to better spend the money. Because a lot of people are spending it because it's like,
I can't say they lack the resources to get it. Like, God, go on YouTube nowadays and you can find everything you'd ever want to find.
yeah, and then it might be the resourcefulness, but a lot of people need to be shown that there's other possibilities out there, right? That they can't, because a lot of people, I believe, look at it more from the angle of like, this is how life has been. This is how my parents grew up, my grandparents. It's like, this is just what it is. So I might as well just own it and live my life this way, right? Where it's like, no, you can actually change your life and live better than this. But you have to make that decision. You have to be willing to make that choice and make those sacrifices of not buying the new sneakers that provide absolutely no value to you. So it's very interesting because, to your point, we've printed over $6 trillion or thereabouts since last year. And now with the new proposal that Biden has with the tax plan, it can cost anywhere from 2 to 4 trillion to roll it out, all to maybe generate 2 trillion over the next 10 years. I'm like, where are you guys? Who the hell is running your your economics? Who's giving you this data? Because it's like, how does this
It's also one of the things that they've now seen for several years, that the governments can run at massive deficits and it doesn't affect the overall economy currently.
Yeah.
But it's one of those, like, it can't go on like that forever. But no administration is going to say, we need to cut back spending. We need to cut back because we know there's going to be economic hits. It's like the quantitative easing thing that, like, once they lowered rates to zero and the world got used to cheap money, it's like, oh, God, we raised it a half a point, and then it sees massive repercussions across the economy. Where, like, now they're trying to force inflation any way they possibly can to get to a point where they can reset kind of that debt load and raise interest rates again.
Yeah, and then you also have the bond market that's calling, supposedly they're calling the Fed's bluff, saying you will raise interest rates as soon as you get some level of inflation, because you're scared to death that inflation gets out of control.
Yeah.
So they're like, you will raise interest rates, even though the Fed is saying we won't raise interest rates at least until like 2023. The market is more saying like, no, we believe that you will raise interest rates before then. Because we're starting to see inflation really creep up in a lot of areas. And even though you keep changing the metrics of what inflation, how you gauge inflation and what that even means, it's still a fact that, inflation is still happening. It's happening in the housing market. It's happening in the transportation industry. The transportation industry is getting destroyed right now because of high gas prices, high oil.
Well, and then also, like, they're having problems too with the fact that there's shipping containers. There's plenty of shipping containers around the world. Like, I had an article a long time ago about this. I don't think we ever covered it. It's like there's plenty of shipping containers around the world. They're just in the wrong place during this whole pandemic, and where they all got shifted to where, like, they got stuck in other places, not back in China. So it's caused, like, shipping costs to absolutely skyrocket because they're trying to get these containers back. Like, right now, we're trying to get a dumpster for one of our projects, and the guy reached out and asked him, usually they're 24-hour turnaround, or sometimes even 12. Hey, I need a dumpster at this address. Can you get it there? Yep, it'll be there in the morning. And it's there. Well, he's like, man, I can't get it there tomorrow. Maybe Saturday, or for sure I can get it on Monday. We're actually owed 40 more containers, or on back order for 40 more containers from China right now. It's like we're short supplied because they're trying to keep up, but they can't get these things. And now causing more problems is this Ever Given ship that has been stuck in the Suez Canal.
Did you meant to say ship or shit?
ship. It's
Oh,
called the
okay.
Ever Given ship, mega
Oh,
container. I mean, it's one that carries all those like you see parked outside like big massive ports that
mhm.
have like thousands and thousands of those massive, huge ships. Well, apparently, this giant ship somehow ran aground in the Suez Canal, and it is causing an estimated $400 million an hour,
Oh my
an hour in global trade slowdowns of like how much that like how much business has gone through that canal, because I think it connects Europe and Asia without around Africa, and having to go all the way down Africa, coming all the way around and going back up. So you have a lot of businesses going through there. So the stranded mega container vessel Ever Given in the Suez Canal is holding up an estimated 400 million an hour in trade, based on approximate values of goods that are moved through the Suez Canal every day. Lloyd's values the canal's westbound traffic at roughly 5 billion a day, and eastbound traffic at around 4.5 billion a day. So $9.6 billion of goods travel through that canal every single day. The blockage is further stressing an already strained supply chain. Many companies continue to struggle with supply chain congestion and delays stemming from the pandemic. There's no doubt the delays will ripple through the supply chain and cause additional challenges. So now here it's like the Suez Canal, which separates Africa from Asia, is one of the busiest trade routes in the world, with approximately 12% of total global trade moving through it. Energy exports with like liquefied natural gas, crude oil, and refined oil make up 5 to 10% of global shipments. So that those stats right there is like 12% of global trade goes through that one canal, and now it's stopped because you see the pictures and there's this massive ship that's just stuck sideways in the middle of the ship. And it's one of the things you can't just grab it and it's like, oh, let me just straighten you out there. They're saying that they're like, it could take weeks for us to get this thing out because you have the rushing water going against it, and then they're trying to dig out from underneath this ship. I saw a picture that's like, it's just the very front of the ship, and you can see the bow of it, and you have an excavator next to it. And excavators aren't small pieces of equipment, and this thing just looks like an itty bitty little ant sided. Like you just see like the very bottom of the ship, and you know this thing goes like way up, and they have this massive excavator next to it that's like extended way out into the water, trying to pull dirt away from it, of like
My
how
God.
big this ship is. But according to the World Shipping Council, the Suez Canal daily vessel throughout capacity is 106. If the canal is closed for 2 days, it will then take 2 additional days after reopening to clear the backlog. The longer the delay, the longer it will take to move out the vessels. Chinese manufacturers are responding to the tremendous global orders Chinese manufacturers are responding to the tremendous global orders for their goods. Pandemic lockdowns have fueled consumer demand over the last year. As a result of continuous historic flow of a vessel holding up millions of containers is clogging ports and slowing down processing. The delays have been costly, and along Nike, along with retailers Crocs, Gap, Peloton, Foot Locker, Five Below, Williams Sonoma, Steve Madden, Whirlpool, Urban Outfitters, and Tesla all cited supply chain problems impacting their businesses this quarter. Now you got this massive ship making it even worse. So I thought that was just very interesting of like how much trade goes through that one canal, and then somehow this massive ship ran aground and turned sideways in the middle of this canal.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like it's always, when it rains it pours kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just one thing after another, after another. It just keeps building on the current problems that we are seeing, that we're having even within real estate, building supplies, building materials, all that stuff. It's just still expensive. It still makes it hard to build. It's still, there's so many transportation issues with delivering the materials, with getting all the stuff that we need to build to do what we need. And then you have a massive housing shortage, so it's like it just keeps adding. And then now you have all of these the new tax plan that Biden is proposing, which is not official yet as far as like what's actually going to be in the plan, but he stayed pretty consistent with a lot of the things. And I had on Brian Lang, that you can check out that interview. It's on our channel right now. But I had Brian Lang talk about the pretty much all the implications of the tax plan, of everything that's gonna do, and it's targeting small businesses, it's targeting real estate investors, it's targeting the wealthy. I mean, it's something that you're literally targeting the producers of the economy. For what reason? In a time where those producers are still getting smacked left and right despite everything else that's going on in the economy. So I mean, those are the things that I don't know, they're kind of weird to me. It just makes me wonder, like, what is it that your economists, what is it that your advisors are seeing that's making you think that you should be doing this right now? You know what I mean? I understand that, like, it seems like the Democrats are and the Republicans are one trick pony. One raises taxes, the other lowers taxes. Period. And it's like, can we at least take a minute to start thinking through the process a little
Yeah.
bit and thinking like, hey, instead of doing what we always do that we understand doesn't work, why not actually think through why that doesn't this work and how can we make it work?
Well, it's always that thing that Democrats always tax and spend, Republicans borrow and spend. It's always been the adage to where it's like it's two sides of the same coin of like
Yeah.
how it affects things. Or
And
it's
they
like
just keep doing it. President after president is the
yeah,
same crap
the debt
over
just
and
goes
over.
higher and higher and higher. It's like it's the same effect because like they're going to tax, but they're not going to pay down debt. They're just going to spend it. Republicans, they don't tax, they lower taxes, but then they borrow to run the deficits that they need to do to run their plants.
So I have an article here, like where I was saying how, you know, the tax plan and the Biden government is actually out. In my opinion, I mean, they haven't come out and said it, but with all the things that are being delivered to me, they're out to get the real estate investor. You know what I mean? They just do not want real estate investors apparently to do
Well, I mean,
anything.
well, it's one of the
And
things that housing and real estate's always been something that they've protected for a long time because a lot of politicians make a ton of money through real estate too. So I do see it, and for sure they're attacking because there's a lot of money made in real estate, especially if you hold stuff long term.
yeah, but there's a reason why that money is made because you're providing the housing that people need. The stuff that's why you have, like, people say, "Oh, the real estate investors take advantage of the loopholes." These are not loopholes. These are tax incentives to do what the government cannot, nor should they do. I mean, we've all heard of government housing. It's never nice.
Oh, and it's
You
cost
understand?
just as
So
much as Class A private sector housing.
yeah, and you're living in essentially in the dumps in a lot of areas. But this article, they talk about renters and Biden's $15,000 home buyer tax credit. So it says, according to a Zillow report, about 9.3 million renter households in the U.S., that's roughly 27%, would spend less than a third of their income on monthly payment for the medium home sold in their metro in 2020 if they received the full tax credit. So this is allowing roughly 27% of renters to be able to afford to actually buy a house and make it affordable for them to do it. And this is, of course, taking into account that they do the 3.5% down payment, 30-year mortgage at a 3% interest rate. The tax credit would cover a borrower's entire down payment for a home in 40 out of the 50 largest U.S. metros. And one key difference with early tax credit is the early ones that you would have to pay for it and then you will get it back when you did your taxes.
That was the
This
2008 stimulus.
Yeah, you will get this one back. You will get this tax credit instantly for you to use when you buy your house. So this wouldn't be something that you got to come out of pocket and then you'll get it back. You're getting this money to buy the house. And then you have the Census Bureau found that 307,000 new homes were on the market in January, roughly 4 months worth of supply at the current sales rate. As for how much borrowers paid that month, the median sales price was around 346, while the actual sales average was closer to 409, pushing the prices out of reach for those who would receive a down payment assistance. And what I found interesting is Lawrence Young, the chief economist at the National Association of Realtors, only with added supply will the home buyer tax credit be effective in boosting homeownership and engaging the middle class. Without supply, home prices jump much higher with no meaningful gain to the new home ownership. Where the reason I found that interesting is because that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing with the increase in taxes, with the increase in inflation, with the increase in all this, you doing this $15,000 tax credit, it's not going to mean a damn thing,
that's
and
why
it's not going to help the people that you think it's going to help.
I read that same article, and that's why also they said that it's highly unlikely that Biden's White House will prioritize this in the near term.
Yeah, because you're
It's
looking
like,
at it and it's like we have a
can't.
huge housing shortage. You're trying to put even more buyers because you want people to get out of renting, right? That's why I'm saying it's targeting investors because who owns rentals? It's going to be investors.
Well, it's also
So,
targeting those long-term gains to where it's like it makes it less advantageous to own those properties long term if you make over $1 million. So like if you make over $1 million a year, that's when all these things kind of cap in. So it's like saying, hey, you can't make as much money in real estate anymore. So stop trying to flood money into real estate when you have this cash and go other else. Um,
well, and that's the thing. Like one of the topics that we talked about with Brian was, they're raising the capital gains tax. Um, so essentially that if you're selling anything over a million, which if you're in real estate and you're owning a couple houses and you follow that, like the rich dad model or that monopoly model, right? 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel, they're killing you on that because they want to get rid of the 1031. So you won't be able to roll that over into another property and delay your taxes. You're going to have to pay taxes regardless on that property. So it might cause people to not want to sell because now it's like, well, if I sell, I'm going to have a
well,
huge
a lot
tax
of things I've
liability.
seen about this is like they're going away, but they're going away for people that make significant amount of money a year. Where the 1031 is going away if you make over $1 million in a year. That's when they take it away.
That's not that much.
And then that's when that's where they always say they're not taxing people that make less than 400 grand. And that's where it's like a lot of this stuff kicks in, the higher capital gains rates, the long
Yeah.
term things where it's like if you're wealthy by over 400 grand up to like $1 million stuff, that's when all these tax advantages start disappearing.
But that's not that much because you look at people that are actual investors, they're the ones that are going to get hit. Hitting a million in real estate is not that much. It's not that hard to achieve if you're an investor.
Yeah.
This isn't going to affect your everyday person, your investor that maybe has 1 or 2 homes, but an investor that has 5 homes, they decide to sell those 5 homes, and especially with all the
Well, that's what
appreciation, roll them over.
Well, that's what Brian made the point is like that's why people need to understand these things. They're like you can't dump all your inventory in one year. If you go from making 200 grand a year
Right.
and then all of a sudden you dump all your inventory and it bumps you to $1 million that year, like that's when you can get screwed. So it's like you need to understand these things to where like it's going to make the tax planning aspect of real estate much more challenging. That it's like I really got to plan out when and how I do my properties, or you don't sell things, you immediately turn it to owner finance where it's like I still get the cash flow, but I don't get the cash, and then you can sell off chunks of your note. It's going to make it just much more creative to where the people
Yes.
that are in this day to day, to where it's like we'll have a discussion about this later, but popped in my head like the NFTs.
Yeah.
I listened to a segment Rick Edelman did about NFTs, and he has a very good job of explaining what is really happening in layman's term,
Mm-hmm.
to where it's like, yeah, you can sell off a piece of your home. Like you're an individual, like you say, you're an investor. It's like, I need $100,000 and I got this massive portfolio. So I'm going to sell off $100,000 worth of my equity and get 100 grand from it. And now they get to participate in the cash flow, like much like we tried to do with the prime homes model several years ago. Then now they're doing it via that way to where it's like, all right, I just literally don't sell anything. I just sell off $950,000 that year and just kind of sell off pieces of it at a time and through those NFTs. So it's going to make things much more creative. And I think that's why it was funny. Like they write these laws, but the private sector is too damn good, too fast, and too
Yes.
smart. And to be like, yeah, I don't have to go through 500 senators to get these things passed. It's like you guys go through all those things. By the time you even put that stuff out, there's new businesses that are popping up, new strategies coming up that are going to create ways to still accomplish the same goal that we had been in the past.
100%. And it's just that's the whole point that we were making during that interview is one of the things that I told Brian. I was like, this is the problem. Like people need to get educated.
Yeah.
People need to, so many, especially in real estate investing. We always hear people say, oh, my accountant handles that. My accountant handles that. It's like, all you're saying is that you're lazy as shit and you don't know what the hell's going on with your books. And then if your accountant tells you, hey, you have this massive profit, why don't you go buy a freaking vehicle? You go like a dumbass and buy a vehicle instead of understanding what this does to you and how this affects
I
you.
just love the way Brian wears like that's probably like the laziest tax advice you could give somebody to like save money on taxes. Like they've been
100%.
saying like go buy a vehicle, go buy a vehicle, go buy a vehicle. It's like so you just used and it's only to save 40%. It's
Yeah.
like you save 40% in tax by going and leveraging a depreciating asset. It's like
that you're
There's
still
so many
paying.
other
Yeah.
ways that you could do, like a 401k, sell a 401k you could do. IRA. Like if you've already maxed all those things out and you still have this massive profit, it's like, okay, now it makes sense. But
Yeah.
dollar for dollar for a solo 401k, I think you can contribute like 50 grand a year towards. And now you go buy a brand new vehicle for 80. Like you run that math, like it just doesn't make sense.
And that's why, like, yes, you need to find a savvy tax strategist, but two, you need to become a savvy
Yeah.
tax strategist. I mean, why I like this time of the year is because usually in a lot of podcasts you have people, a lot of podcasts that start interviewing tax strategists and what's coming down the line and all. And I love listening to that because I love understanding what's happening with the tax strategies. What are things that are changing? This law, if they push this through with the 1031s and with the capital gains, okay, they're going to do that regardless of how you feel, how much your feelings get hurt. It doesn't matter. Now you need to get strategic and say, okay, well, if they're doing this, what is it? How can I prevent this from happening? How can I keep doing business? How can I keep investing by doing this kind of thing? You know what I mean? And taking care of your bottom line, because if you can't make money, you can't stay in business.
Well, that's where it's just funny. That's like, oh, are you going to tax the business owner and the investors and the rich people? Like, do you really think you're going to be able to attack those people? The reason they are in the position they're in is it wasn't just given to them. The vast majority of them, and especially like, what is it, like 70% of new millionaires are self-made, or it's like the reason they are where they are is because they're smart. The Trump thing is like, you paid zero in tax because I'm smart. And it just dropped. It's like, yeah, that's why.
Yeah, if you're smart, I mean, it's not that you're being greedy, right? That's where it annoys the hell out of me when people always criticize the rich yes, you do have greedy rich people and all that, 100%. But the majority of them are not greedy. They're taking care of their bottom line because that's how you stay in business.
Yeah.
If you're not profitable, if you're not making money, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
You understand? And I always find it hilarious, and that was something that I spoke about with Brian, is how, especially from the left, that you hear all these people, yeah, tax the rich, yeah, screw them, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as it's tax time, they're like, wait, I got to pay what? $100 in taxes? $200? Oh, this is bullshit. Why do I got to pay? Blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. What happened with taxing people? I thought you were cool with taxes. You're cool with everything as long as it doesn't touch you. And it's like, that's not how these things work. It's always going to touch you.
Yeah.
You understand? Because we are connected. Everything connects with everybody else. It's the same when COVID happened and people were asking me, how has this affected your business? And it's like, at the time, I'm like, it hasn't yet, but we got to wait for this to come around.
Yeah, it was always the thing we said, like, especially with real estate, it's like, it's not an immediate thing like a restaurant.
Yeah.
Like, it's very long-winded and delayed to the sense that, like, we buy something, we might not be selling it for 6, 8, 12 months. A new construction, it could take a year or more, especially when you go through the development process and everything like that. Or like, I don't know what it's going to be in a year. Or it makes it very uneasy when it's like, God, when everything was coming down, it's like, man, I really don't know what it's going to look like in 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, and then there was another article I was reading that they're saying buyers are getting very frustrated because they can't buy homes. They're out there and then they can't find it, and all of a sudden they get priced out because the prices are just, they keep going for literally sell by sell. It keeps edging higher and higher.
We used to, like, what, 3 years ago when we started doing this, like, we just said, we're just going to hold the property for 3 months. Like, because that's when FHA financing became available.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's like, there's just no point because I'll finish this rehab, put it on the market, and all the days on market go high, and I'll end up hitting 90 days anyways.
Yeah.
For that. But now it's like, no, get it done as fast as we can, put on the market, because there's so many, just to go from FHA to conventional, it's only 1.5% extra on the down payment.
Yep.
You only got to put 5% down. And there's so many VA buyers out there now. It's like, if you are just barely scraping by with FHA financing, like, if I get offers and it's like, I'm not going to go the FHA route. Like, I will gladly take a conventional or VA over FHA.
Well, and then also we have that other thing that we've been seeing more and more, especially when you're running comps, is how the buyer's agent, their commission is dropping as well. Because it's like, being a buyer's agent right now is not hard at all.
It's like finding buyers. It's like, but finding a house to put them in to buy.
Exactly.
Because to where we got a friend of ours that listed a house not FHA financeable yet. Just was, I think it was on the market within 2 weeks of owning it. And he even put in the description, not FHA financeable until this date, much like Open Door does.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like 2 months still before it was financeable. And then he listed, I think it was like 170, and some agent threw out 185,000 FHA.
Yeah.
And like, did you not read the description? You still wasted time to go over there. And it's like, that's why buyer's agent commissions are dropping.
Yeah.
Is because you have people that just go find buyers and they just start showing them a ton of houses, not even reading descriptions, just so eager. And no, that was it. Oh man, I didn't put that in here. That how many agents are in San Antonio compared to listings. So in Sabor, San Antonio Board of Realtors, just here in San Antonio, there are 12,000 registered agents. On the MLS alone, there's only 3,200 houses for sale.
Yeah.
4 times the amount of agents compared to what's for sale. It's like, and call me a greedy agent. I have 2 of them.
Yeah.
Of my own properties, the one that I'm representing. It's like, so the expert, and like, I'm not that active.
Yeah.
You go to some of the people that we know that are like make their living off of real estate, do 10, 15 million a year by themselves. They might have 10 transactions going on at one time. So there's a ton of agents that are not getting anything.
A video that I did that's also on our channel about, working with inexperienced agents. And it was those stats. It was how many agents we have in San Antonio, operating in San Antonio, not just in San Antonio, but operate here. It was closer to like 16 to 18,000 agents that operate in San Antonio. Then you had the number of listings available. And then you take into account the stats that we've always heard, that 80% of the listings are done by 20% of the agents. Yeah. So you take 20% of the listings left over. It was like 800 listings that was going to go to 80% of those agents. So the level of agents that are hungry for that commission, the level of agents that don't know what the hell they're doing, everybody and anybody. I mean, my wife comes every now and then and tells me how one of the women in they do a group that's called Walking Moms, and they go to park with the kids to walk and exercise or whatever. And how every now and then one of them is, oh, I'm going to get my real estate license. Oh, I'm going to get my real estate license. I'm like, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, there really isn't any level of barrier of entry. It's like, if you have time and you can study, that you can test well, you can get your license. Yeah. You understand? But then you have that problem. You have unsophisticated agents trying to submit offers for people they don't know how to submit. They don't know how the market works. They
don't even realize, like, FHA financing, you can't just put it on any house. Things. Like, the prior owner needs to own the house for 90 days for it to be FHA financeable.
Yeah, and then you have these brokerages that are
they got these new buyers stuff. They should change those laws, or it's like or lower that barrier. Where like the FHA, it's inhibiting new home buyers from the ability to compete in today's marketplace on those FHA financing.
Well, they're trying to target the investors first.
Yeah, they're targeting the investors in 90 days, but
they don't want to benefit the investors.
But it's one of those that you're benefiting the investor, but not at anyone's expense. It's like you're now getting new people into it.
You're thinking something that's logical and that makes actual sense. That's not what the government does. They don't do logic, and they don't make sense. So
we're going to look at like, anti-flipping laws. We need to have those in here to make sure they own it, to protect the consumer. I was like, well, now since you're trying to protect the consumer, I'm the government, I'm here to help. They can't get into housing because the prior owners on some houses haven't owned them for 90 days.
Plus anti-flipping laws. Has that stopped people from flipping?
No.
You get what I'm saying? Like, guys, like, seriously, let's sit down. And that thing that when you go like this, it rattles a lot. Let's try to actually use it for once and see, like, hey, let's actually put this to work. Yeah. Maybe it'll fill in our head a little bit. Yeah. But going into the unique how people adapt. There's a real estate brokerage. I've had this article on here for quite some time.
Thank God.
Finally going to be able to talk about it. But I have a real estate brokerage that has a unique model to how they operate in the real estate business. So many economists are predicting low mortgage rates for the extended period of time, which will keep the red hot sellers market intact indefinitely. With that in mind, home sellers are racing to the market and searching for ways to pay lower commissions to list their properties that are confident will sell quickly. Because, I mean, that's another thing. Inventory is so low that it's like, what the hell do you really need an agent for? Like, to push paperwork. You know what I mean? Because they're not doing anything else. They don't need to be doing anything. Today, both sellers and buyers expect to handle a majority of the process online, For the well prepared real estate brokerages, this holds a promising future. Louisiana based real estate brokerage, 1% list, talk about keywords. They, their name is 1% list. Takes an innovative, cost effective approach to selling homes, and it is now franchising that model at an aggressive price to quickly open in markets throughout the country. The company offers complete real estate services for only 1% commission on the listing side. Its service includes professional photography, no upfront fees, all negotiation, pricing, staging advice, showing monitoring, and more for a flat 1% fee. Due to the company's value proposition, the agents at 1% list spend less time on lead generation than their counterparts and more time listing a larger volume of homes. The larger volume of listings is then used to create real buyer clients organically. Over the last 5 years, 1% list agents' retention level has been close to 100%, as agents at 1% list are able to stop paying for leads, list more houses, and generate buyers from its large pool of listings. So it's helping out the agents because it's giving them, they handle all of the marketing, they handle everything. All the agents got to do is go ahead, they got a list, they use pretty much 1% list, that company's back end, to manage the listing, manage everything, and then they focus on getting the buyers. So they also can bring the buyers.
Yeah.
So now our agents no longer have to focus on overwhelming lead gen, requires to the business for purchasing expensive dead end buyer leads. Says the owner agents focus on branding our unique value proposition, which has clients pursuing them when you charge. And
Same fees as thousands of other
yeah,
agents.
I don't know why. There we go. Our agents focus on branding, unique proposition. So they focus on just building that same brand of their business. We simply have convinced the world we exist, and then the business pursues us. That is a much easier task to accomplish. I mean, in the market where sellers are looking for a lower listing, the fact that their company name is 1% list is already enough. Because as soon as somebody goes online on Google on anything and searches, 1% fees or lower interest, lower fees, listing fees, they're gonna show
Well, I
up
mean,
number one.
I see billboards all over. Like, you see these discount brokerages popping up all the time, to where it's like, hey, $1,000 flat fee, $1,000 flat fee. You're paying how much in real estate commissions? You need a bigger fee, or you should be saving your money. Or
And
like, especially you get into those higher prices.
and then here's also the innovativeness of this the CEO of this company. They partner with One Click SEO. So it makes it for their franchisees and agents can get world-class digital marketing campaigns put in place for them for about 1/5 of what they would normally pay. This means my agents and franchisees have a lot more of their money go to proven marketing strategies rather than management fees. Our goal is to provide a high quality and, most important, cost-effective strategy so agents can focus on what agents like to do, lots of real estate deals. Since branding is an important part of real estate, 1% recently brought on graphic design team that all of its franchisees and agents can use free of charge. So you're eliminating the biggest barrier so many people have, which is marketing and digital marketing at that. And then you're leveraging your brand because now they're doing digital marketing they're paying for the digital marketing that's building the massive brand that they already have of a 1% list. So it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then that feeds the brand feeds the agent, and it just keeps, to me, I'm like, this shit is going to blow up. In the last few months, 1% has experienced a great deal of growth as many of its own top producers are becoming franchisees. The 1% list currently has 9 franchises open with another 11 commitments preparing to open in Louisiana, Tennessee, Maryland, Mississippi, California, Florida, and North Carolina, and forecasts having up to 100 franchisees open by the end of 2021. So our franchisees' requests come from the wide range of people. Some of them are small, traditional 6% brokers looking to try something new. Some of them are discount brokers who haven't figured out how to scale it and make it a boom. So this is the stuff that we talk about. You know what I mean? Like being innovative, figuring shit out. A lot of brokers, they won't do this because they're like, I can't generate a profit. Yes, that is true. You cannot generate a profit that way. But at scale, you can. At scale, at the scale that these people are
Well,
doing it.
that's what a lot of these companies do. It's like
Yeah.
they run at a loss or break even, just taking market share. And that's how business is done. Or it's like that's why all these companies that raise billions of dollars. That's Open Doors model and like Perch and Zillow. Like they run billions of dollars in losses to try to create a new way of thinking
Yeah.
and force the consumer to think a different way to eventually they can turn a profit.
And that's
That's
where I
exactly
think
what it is.
if you're a broker or an agent that is struggling, right? Like this is a model that you should try to adapt as quickly as possible. You should try to maybe become a franchisee for these people. They already have the marketing, they have the funnels, they have everything. The market is red hot. It's going in this direction anyway. It's Are you going to accept it or not?
Yeah.
You understand? Like, are you going to get
Especially like the
put out of
new,
business?
like there's always going to be place for very experienced agents that demand a high level of service.
Mm-hmm.
But
100%.
that's not your 80%. It's like the good agents will always continue to get their 3%. They might have to lower a little bit further, but it's the level of service that they provide, that hand holding of the like the you call it the champagne service
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. To where you get down to where it's like, hey, I have a $200,000 house. I don't need services. Get this thing sold for me off and doing other things. Yeah, 1%, boom, gone. But you get into those big houses that need high levels of marketing across multiple markets and other divisions, like your Phyllis Brownings and your higher end stuff. Because I think going out to the Dominion now for some listing that I drive by. There's a Phyllis Browning International Realty office right at the front door. They drive by the thing and it's like Phyllis Browning International Realty right there.
Yeah.
To where like you'll always have those people, but the vast majority of them, I agree that it's going to be, you gotta lower it down, and just 3% off of some of these is not going to make sense anymore, especially as the internet continues to grab hold more and more and more and more. That's the way it's gonna.
Yeah,
gonna
the
be.
internet is not going away. Marketing is not going away. You want exposure, you want everything. People are on their phones, on the internet more and more. I mean, you cannot really run any business without being online. So they're dominating the online presence by partnering with a company that does SEO. Their
Oh, and just
specialty is SEO. I mean,
and the way it's been integrated into systems nowadays with like the cell phones and Facebook and Google's and Twitter,
yeah,
like then I don't know what's eventually going to happen with that. There's an article I started reading that once again for 5.5 hours, the three big tech influence CEOs got pulled in front of Congress again, and for 5.5 hours, and they said they just started. There's tensions ran hot a lot, and they're constantly being pulled. I mean, I think this is the 5th time in the last 12 months they've been pulled to Congress.
it's just posturing. It's posturing. It's Congress trying to make it seem like they give a damn, and at the end of the day, it's like all they keep doing is making the internet and all these social media platforms worse and worse for consumers.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to regulate the shit out of it, and all they keep doing is overcorrecting by a drastic
You and I
amount.
have different opinions on social media and those things, but
Yeah.
the way it is, regardless, like they are attached to your phones. They're constantly there. They
100%.
listen to all your phone conversations. I'm thinking about listing my house. Next thing I time I get on Facebook, 1% is going to be right there at the top.
Yep.
It's like that's how it works.
But my thing is like, as a business owner, you got to embrace it. Like you can't get so emotional about all these things, right? Because they hurt your feelings. It's like this is the way the market
Yeah,
is
it's like
going. It's
personally,
not going away.
Personally, I don't agree with it, but
Yeah.
business wise, it's like, yeah, you got to freaking have it. It's like you can't
100%.
fight it because it's going there until they are able to slow it down and change it. You gotta be unemotional. Like we always talk about real estate. You can't get emotional about real estate. You get emotional about real estate, that's when you lose.
Yes.
And the business is the same way. You can't get emotional about what's going on. So you can put up a fight to try to influence things, but then you also have to be able to adapt to what is actually currently going on and see like, all right, it's going that way. I need to adapt my business that way, but I can try to willingly contribute to steer it in a different direction. But at the end of the day, if you lose the vote, you lose the vote, and you need to go with what the economy is.
So before we move on, I wanted to ask you a question, and I'd forgotten about it. Just remembered it. Months of inventory, right? you put out the market update. You're going to be doing another full Texas market update this coming week. So you put out the market update, and the biggest key that we look for everything is months of inventory.
Yeah.
Months of inventory dictates how hot a certain price point is, certain zip codes are, certain market is. The balance, since we started, we've always heard a balanced market is 6 months.
Yeah.
Right? Below 6 months is a seller's market, above 6 months is a buyer's market. Since I've been in real estate, it's been, I think, at or below 4 months since
Oh yeah, ever since I've been here, like it's
8
starting
plus
in real
years.
estate, it's like it's always been below 6 months in the
S-
majority of overall
Right.
market.
And now we're in a lot of areas, we're even below 1 month, below 2 months for sure, in most of San Antonio. I mean, do you think that there's a chance that that metric changes, where moving forward, a balanced market becomes maybe 4 months instead of 6? You think there's a possibility as we linger longer and longer into these lower months of inventory and the market keeps moving? You Because I think about it now, like if we're below a month, below 2 months, if we're go up to 6 months, I mean, what are we talking about? Massive depression? You know what I mean? Like I try to picture like if it's 6 months of inventory in San Antonio, call it like
Well, that's just where
where are
the
we?
natural and like the because that's what everyone says. Like real estate hasn't been in a good asset class because it only appreciates 3% a year. Like yeah, but except you lower interest rates, so you have these inflation adjusted metrics where like if real estate did not get these bumps from these lower interest rates, then yes, it doesn't appreciate as fast. So I think that's where you get that balance is that 6 months of inventory is when it rises at its natural price over time. Because if there's more demand, it does push prices up. If there's lower interest rates, it does push prices up to where like I don't think I mean they could obviously spin it however they want to the balanced market changing that metric, but I think it's something that's set that the studies have been done, the math's been done to where you get that natural inflation curve, a rise of real estate prices, you need to be at a 6 month inventory, regardless of
Yeah.
the interest rate. So if we went to
Yeah.
6 months, real estate wouldn't continue to fly up as it did. It would just slowly go up, even with low interest rates.
But you're talking about letting the market do what the market does, which that's not what's happening. What's happening is that the market is being controlled and manipulated every step of the way to do what they feel needs the market needs to do. So what I'm saying is,
What do you mean?
well, like the real estate market is like we said before, they don't want the real estate market to crash, right? They don't want it to come down, they don't want it to crash because it's their gauge to a great economy. And what we see now over the past decades is that the government has a complete control on what the metrics do and what the economy does. Because you have the Federal Reserve is buying 120 billions a month of bonds. They're printing money left and right. They're gonna keep propping shit up as much as
Well,
they need, and they
that's just
control all
I
that.
wouldn't say it's
So
manipulating real estate specifically. That's it's real estate asset
yeah.
prices, or it's like every asset,
So
any asset.
how would it regulate on its own when we are kind of like everything that we see is being controlled? It's not really being left to its own devices. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the way I look at it, with the way everything is being controlled and being ran, I feel like if we get to a 6 month balanced market, it's because it blew up in that direction. I don't think we're gonna have a gradual like it should go to a 6 month balanced market. I think it's gonna go like if we even get that high
So
again,
you're talking it's like you need a lending crisis.
something needs to
It's
happen.
like you need a crisis that I mean, just like
Or they need to lower what a balanced market looks like. So then that way it can be more controlled and not all the way to 6 months. It's more like 4 months. Because I think about it like how to get to 6 months. I don't see them doing it in a controlled format. Like I think it's gonna be, it's
well,
low
it's
and
just
then it explodes.
I don't no I don't think they'll change the metric because the metric doesn't matter. It's just a metric of what a balanced market is. Like they don't care. They just want a functioning. They by meaning the
No,
gods of
I'm not saying
finance.
they care about what the metric is. I'm saying for us, like for investors and everything, are we going to reframe the way we look at what a balanced market is?
Oh, I no, because I really don't use that as like an overall 6 month balance metric. I say that because that's what people talk about, but it's
Right.
also like I'm gonna frame my frame of mind of what is the current market. How long is it taking? Just like right now, we would always hold houses for at least 90 days. before we put it on the market. And now we've changed that frame of mind because of how the market's reacting of when people put on the houses.
Yeah.
So like if that slows down or more inventory comes up, 'cause I mean, it's just an inventory problem.
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
so
But because of what we consider to be a balanced market is how we know we're in a hot market, right? Things sell fast. We looking at months of inventory. At what point do you feel like, or is that just not going to matter? Where it's like, all right, now it's taking longer to sell. It doesn't matter if we consider it to be a hot market or not. It just takes X amount of days to sell, and that's just what
I
it
just
is.
adjust my initial purchase prices.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not going to take on that deal. It's like, because I know it's going to take me 4 or 5 months to sell it. So as time goes, but given, if you have just a massive crisis where everything comes to a screeching halt, you're screwed anyways.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you just adjust and like over time and just make sure you not make too quick of rash decision for a quick profit. Then the thing we talk about, like understanding why you're making money. So like the wholesale aspect or you buy it, you just clean it up to where you can get financing, you put it on the market. You got to understand why you're getting that price the way you're getting it. Because if you keep that business model moving forward and then you're not paying attention of what's driving those buyers and that consumer mindset, eventually your business model is going to go to crap because you're going to keep doing that. And all of a sudden you're going to get inventory that sits longer and longer and longer because you're doing crappy renovations.
Well, I mean, that was a discussion you and I had last night and last weekend when I did the workshop. That was something, it was on wholesaling. That was one thing that I was telling them is that you got to understand that as a wholesaler, just because you can wholesale a crappy deal doesn't mean that you should stop trying to understand why it's a crappy deal, right? Because as a wholesaler, your goal should be to become an actual investor at some point.
Yeah.
You understand? Because as wholesalers, we've seen it time and time again. Like you can't build a sustainable life as a wholesaler because it's just a job. You know, it's you got to keep wholesaling. You got to keep deals coming in. You got to keep putting them out in order to keep making revenue. Where an investor is not speculating, they're investing. They're holding on to property. They're investing long term. It's calculated risk. And I was telling them, I'm like, you got to take the time to understand if you are wholesaling a deal and all this, and it's not an actual deal. You need to understand what that looks like because we're seeing people left and right that are cutting corners. They're cutting corners with rehab. They're cutting corners with all this just because they can.
Trying to make deals work.
Exactly. But they don't understand that it's like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Because when you try to become a real investor, that shit is not going to slide anymore. That's not going to be allowed anymore. But that's the way that you learn how to do real estate.
You do it long enough over time, you're going to get caught.
Yeah, and it's going to come back. And that's what a lot of wholesalers don't understand. It's like they think, oh, I wholesaled the property, I'm done. Like, you can still get sued later on by the buyer or anything. You're still attached to that transaction.
Your name is still on a paperwork and documents somewhere.
Yeah.
That it's like, oh yeah, but especially if you're just a one-off wholesaler and like you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars, you get roped into a big lawsuit and like you're involved in it. It's like, yeah, you have to defend yourself still, even though it's no fault of your own. It's like, I just moved the paper. Well, the courts don't care by you saying that. I just moved the paper. Like, attorney needs to tell the courts that you just moved the paper, and an attorney's not going to do that for free.
Well, and it's gonna go back to the same thing of, you should have known better. You knew what you were getting yourself into.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You didn't do it right. Like, you are still gonna be liable for shit. Like, and especially in a country where we're so litigious and you can get sued for anything, you have to be careful with what you do. You have to understand, hey, this is a shitty deal, and I understand this is a shitty deal. Right? Now take the precautions moving forward. And the same when you're flipping, the same when you're keeping a rental, because then even when you're keeping a rental and we talk about all the tax liabilities, all the things that can happen, you don't know what can change from one year to the next. So you have a rental, maybe it wasn't a great deal. And then all of a sudden, a year or so from now, you're like, oh, I got to get rid of it. But the tax laws change. Everything changed. And now you getting rid of that becomes either impossible to do or you're going to get hit hard.
Yep.
You understand? So it's like, you need to buy right. You need to be savvy. You need to understand, and you need to invest the right way. And there is a right way to invest, as much people don't believe there is. But it's gonna be very interesting to see how people adapt, and how people manage all of these things moving forward. But I wanted to move forward with talking about emotional politics. So you have Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway floats $8.3 billion fix for the Texas power grid. So the company, Berkshire Hathaway is proposing an $8.3 billion plan to help Texas avoid a repeat of February's blackout, building a lot of new natural gas plants. The conglomerate is asking state lawmakers to approve a plan for a new company that would add about 10 gigawatts of gas plants and emergency gas storage, according to the presentation seen by Bloomberg. The Texas grid will operate. The Texas grid operator will control the plants and could tap them to prevent blackouts like the one that left more than 4 million homes and businesses in the dark. We really want to make sure that this never happens again, so we're really wanting to partner with the state. Chris Brown, Chief Executive Officer of Berkshire Hathaway Energy Infrastructure Group, said. The proposal is simple. State residents should have a reliable source of backup power. If Berkshire Hathaway is successful in its lobbying, Texas will be adding a massive amount of new gas-fired capacity at a time when President Biden is trying to shift the country away from fossil fuels.
That's what I was just gonna think. Like, isn't they trying to get away from like gas and coal-fired stuff now? Or trying to force these all renewable things?
Yeah,
like,
so
that's interesting. I can see Texas doing that just to spite the administration.
Well, Texas is going more blue than anything, so I don't think they will. Under the proposal, Texas power customers would pay a fee to cover the costs of the plants. In exchange for making the investment, Berkshire is proposing to earn 9.3% rate of return, which would need approval by the state regulators. And then you get this comment. We see little to no chance of Texas approving that Buffett proposal, said Andy DeVries, the utility analyst at Credit Sites. If they were going to spend that amount of money, which is a big if, they would do it with Texas companies. So the fuck does that matter? You know what I mean? Like, to do it with Texas companies. It's like if another company is proposing a better solution and the Texas companies can't propose that solution, then the best solution for the state is the best solution for the state, regardless of who's proposing it, you would think. I don't know.
Well, it's probably one of those. Like, it's the same thing. Like, we would try to propose that, and like, I see what you're doing, but I'm gonna create a coalition of the local Texas companies to keep money in Texas to not have outside influence, because now you have that massive amount of power being controlled by a company that doesn't office here.
Yeah.
You're sending that money to Nebraska. Now Nebraska has control and hold of your power grid. They're trying to say you would have control. It's like cash is king. Who's got the money? Who paid for it? That's who has the control and power. Or like that's one of the pride and joys of Texas, that it's Texas owned. It doesn't have a lot of outside influence in it, which obviously caused a lot of the problems. But they've been able to skirt outside regulation because it is Texas owned. And that is kind of one of those things where that's why he says there's zero chance of it being approved. They're like, because Texas, you can't just change that overnight. The mentality of how it's run. So that's where I say, like, it may cost us $10 billion to have it done via Texas companies, but we're going to do it because it's Texas companies. Not
my thing
is
like
Hathaway. The government doesn't run efficiently based like that.
Do Texas companies have the resources, the knowledge, and the ability to implement what Berkshire Hathaway has proposed? And I'm not saying what Berkshire is proposing is the solution. I'm just, it's my curiosity. Like, you know, we rather give it to Texas companies. Cool. Can they do that?
Well, Texas is also the energy capital of the United States, so I would assume they'd be able to figure it out and do it. It just comes down to the financing aspect of it, I'd imagine. It's like, where's the cash come from? But $8.3 billion is a lot of money, but $8.3 billion isn't a lot of money to a lot of people, or as plans like that. Like, I think they could raise $8.3 billion as the state of Texas to invest in energy companies or do all kinds of creative financing to make that work.
The article continues by saying it could have the plan operational by winter of 2023. The proposal would cost less than winterizing the state's power generators or creating a so-called capacity market where generation units are paid to provide supplies in future years, according to Berkshire. Berkshire will ensure that no customer will ever be without power for more than 3 hours. The Texas Reliability Corp would offer a $4 billion performance guarantee provided by an investment grade counterparty. So I mean, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I agree with what you're saying as far as keeping it in Texas, because obviously we have, Texas has or at least should have the best interests of its people in mind and not outside influence, outside power. But that is a proposal. They have that in there saying it's going to cost less than from what it seems that Texas is planning to do right now as it is. So I don't know. I don't see Texas as adopting it, just for the fact that one of the biggest reasons why we got into this problem is because Texas has been investing so much money trying to go green, and all the mills, all the windmills, all the green energy, all that shit froze. And
Yeah.
that's, what created such a big problem. So I don't, and Texas keeps going more blue than anything. So I don't see how they're going to allow something that's powered by gas, even if it's going to function, even if it's going to
Well,
work.
you say going blue, but our state legislature is still red, and it's majority rules. Like they don't have a super majority like California does as far as like blue,
Yeah.
but our legislation is still very red. Or like, yeah, the population's turning blue, but the state legislature is still red, and the elections aren't coming around to where this is a plan that's going to come up this year's plan. So where it's like, if the red state and red politicians want it, they will go that route.
Yeah,
Like
but they have to make the decision before the next election.
which is this what? But they have this decision comes up now. This year is a state legislature year to where it would get done. They've already said like they are going to address this issue this legislative session.
Yeah, I remember him saying that, it wasn't going to go beyond this year.
Yeah, because we only meet every 2 years. I mean, it's
Yeah.
cool because the fact that doesn't give the politicians every opportunity every year to screw our economy over and make all businesses change. But it's one of those like they can't wait another 2 years after this year to address this issue.
Well, I still think the best solution that there is for you to address it for yourself at your home, where it's like, there's a chance that this could happen again. Are you prepared to handle that next thing, or are you waiting for the government to solve it for you? The government is inefficient. I would say if you can, try to take all the precautions that you can yourself to protect yourself and your family. That's the only thing you have
So
control
you should
over.
go out and spend tens of thousands of dollars for a once in a generation storm.
On what?
Once in a generation.
Spend tens of thousands on what?
Like if you went and bought like a generator system and like for your house and stuff like that. And
Oh, yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't cost that much.
you go over those home generators, yeah, they're like $8,000.
Okay, but that's not tens of thousands of dollars.
Okay, there's $8,000 of it, but then now creating like water filtration systems so you could have water because that was a problem here. So you have like
So
storage
your
tanks.
argument is like, let's keep being the government's bitch.
Yeah.
Nice.
No,
That's great.
no, not be like just
That's the
be
problem.
prepared like in a plan that is like
But that's the issue. It's like either to a lot of people, it's oh well, I can't afford $15,000 to do. Nobody's telling you to spend $15,000.
Yeah.
There's a lot smaller things that you can buy right now that will still take care of you.
Yeah.
In case something was to happen, you know what I mean. That will cost maybe $100 to put together.
Yeah. Oh, it's like you're just thinking like those home systems like they're designed to run your entire house for like 2.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And that would be ideal if you can afford something like that.
But I mean, you could get like a little propane heat, not a propane heater because that kicks off fuel. But you could have a little gas generator outside that could at least power your essentials. So you could get a basic heater. You could have the refrigerator going. You could have an electric cooktop, little hot plate.
Yeah.
Like you could survive for a while.
Oh, 100%. But you want to move into that 14-state sue administration?
Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go. 14 states sue Biden administration over oil and gas lease moratorium. So 14 states filed suit on Wednesday against President Joe Biden's moratorium on new oil and gas leases on public lands and waters. A coalition of 13 states led by Louisiana filed one lawsuit on Wednesday. Wyoming filed a separate lawsuit. And the quote is, the moratorium might make for a nice headline about fighting climate change, but the real consequences of the actions are far more certain and far more uniformly environmentally friendly, the Wyoming lawsuit said. Biden also directed the Secretary of the Internal Department to begin a thorough review of existing permits for fossil fuel developments and ordered the federal government to conserve 30% of public lands and waters by 2030. The suit also came as the Biden administration prepares to unveil its proposal for overhauling the nation's infrastructure, which is expected to include an ambitious set of climate-related proposals. The Louisiana lawsuit argued that the president's executive order would hurt communities depending on oil and gas drilling and drive up energy prices. Drilling on federal lands contributes to roughly a quarter of the U.S. greenhouse gas emissions and generates billions of dollars in revenue. My thought was like, have you seen the gas prices lately in the past 6 months? Like they've really damn near doubled. And now you're saying, oh, we get a quarter of our generation is from federal land gas and providing all those billions of dollars and employing all of these communities. And now they're gonna be like, nope, we're just gonna cut this stuff off. So like your West and South Texas would be decimated by stuff like that. Your Louisiana, your small drilling towns would be decimated that depend on oil drilling offshores. Or like you would just decimate these parts of the economy and just put thousands and thousands of people out of work.
My thing is like, this wasn't a surprise where we knew that a Biden administration would bring that on, right? We knew that that was their goal from the beginning, is to tackle tackle oil, tackle all these things. So what could these places do to like start preparing for that? You know what I mean? Or is the administration just trying to move way too fast to adapt something that the country's just not ready for yet?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you keep talking about all these things about unemployment and employment and helping all these things out, but it's like, well, you keep doing things that keep hurting employment, keeps hurting businesses, and especially in the oil industry and all that. I mean, we've met a lot of people that worked in the oil industries. They're not like the workers themselves. A lot of them are kind of like your uneducated, no high school diplomas, stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like
and they can make good money in that industry not having a high school diploma.
Yeah, because they're putting in a shit ton of work.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the most rewarding work. I mean, they're covering oil. They're 16-hour days. I mean, they're long weeks, long hours at night, terrible shifts, but they get compensated well for that work.
So the people that you're saying you want to help, you keep hurting more and more without providing solutions for them. Except for, let's just
how we can get them retrained and reeducated. It's gonna be like they enjoy their lifestyle, that they don't want to go sit and work in an office or something like that. It's like it doesn't. No.
Yeah, I think those things. I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see how those things play out, especially for real estate. I mean, you got to look at it as a real estate investor. If you're investing in these markets where they're so heavily dependent on oil, on these kind of productions, like start planning. Start planning ahead. Start thinking like, how's the job market going to be affected in that sector? You know what I mean? And that's what I still like about Texas, is that we're making a huge shift into the tech space. You know, where because of California being the ridiculous state that it is, we're having a lot of the tech companies and everything move into Texas. So it's becoming more diverse as far as the job market goes. You know,
Yeah.
Houston, I don't know. Houston might get hit harder. Because,
No, they just brought Hewlett Packard there. That's not a small tech company.
Right. Yeah.
So they are being more diverse. I mean, my worry is just with it. It's like, do they bring the politics with it? And I really think that it will, just because you look at the nature and like the cycles of politics and economies. Like when you get something that brings that much money, you're going to create inequality for sure. Like you look at Silicon Valley, when they started globally bringing all that money into there, and a lot of people started getting very wealthy, that drove up a lot of prices and then suppressed a lot of people. And that's where the politics come from. It's like, tax the rich. I need support from the government because they can't work for these companies or don't have the skill set to work for them. And that creates those divisions. Yeah. So like it will happen eventually, but we'll see how long it goes. But I mean, to your point, an article I've had in here for a while is the McConnell's comments about Democrats do not have a mandate to completely transform the country. And that's a lot of things with this new administration proposing things where a lot of people are like, oh, it's all going to hell. They control the majority. They control everything. And it's like they don't have complete control like most people don't, because they are talking about getting rid of the filibuster. And that's where this stems from, because without the filibuster, they can't, as long as the majority votes for something, they can get anything passed that doesn't require the budget reconciliation requirements like the tax plan or the last stimulus package did. So, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said on Wednesday that Democrats were not given a mandate by the American people to eliminate the filibuster in order to completely transform this country. McConnell, during an appearance on the Falker Focus, said that some Democrats are preparing to steamroll the Senate into a majoritarian body, like the House of Representatives, by eliminating the filibuster because it is an inconvenience their ability to push through progressive legislation. McConnell threatened on Tuesday to turn the Senate into a 100-car pileup and block even the most basic aspects of its function if Democrats get rid of the legislative filibuster. McConnell continued, I want our colleagues to imagine a world where every single task, every one of them, requires a physical quorum, which, by the way, the vice president does not count in determining a quorum. This chaos would not open up an express lane for liberal change. The Senate would be more like a 100-car pileup, nothing moving. And I was like, okay, a physical quorum. Like, what is that? I don't understand. When I Google, is it a quorum? The number of senators that must be present for Senate to do business. The Constitution requires a majority of senators, 51, for a quorum. Often fewer senators are actually present on the floor, but the Senate presumes that a quorum is present unless the contrary is shown by a roll call vote or quorum call. Meaning, since there's 50 Republicans, 50 Democrats, and the vice president does not count, 50 Republicans don't show up for work. And they're like, we're not there. Do a roll call and count 51 people, and there's not 51 people there. It will stop the function of the Senate, and it will stop everything from, that's what he's saying, like a 100-car pileup, the basic function, nothing will get passed. Is like he said, well, they still hold that card, where it's like, it doesn't want to go that route because like you literally just, the government just turns into more of a chaotic mess than it already is. And it's saying like, you eliminate that, we will go that route.
Well, how does this relate to the when they were you were talking before about trying to get rid of the
filibuster. That's what we're saying, because they're saying they're going to get rid of the filibuster. A lot of people are pushing to get rid of the filibuster because it, like you mentioned, is because it's an inconvenience to the liberal change and how they want to transform the country. So if they get rid of the filibuster, 50 votes allows the Senate to get anything passed. Where like the stuff they're talking about now with what is the infrastructure, not infrastructure, what bill are they working on right now? I can't think what it is, but well, you can do that through reconciliation too, I believe. But dang it, can't think of it. It has to do with spending. I don't know, whatever it is. But like, if it doesn't have to do with the federal budget, it requires 60 votes in order to pass. So you have to have some bipartisan function. Right. But now when they say like these passing of like, oh, these the $15 minimum wage, they want to force that. That doesn't count in budget reconciliation. So now if they want to get that passed, they have to get 60 votes or eliminate the filibuster to where 50 votes and the vice president can break the tie.
Right.
But now they're basically threatening, like, if you eliminate our ability to block legislation like that, the Senate will not function. You can pass as many bills as you want. You can propose as many things as you want, but the Senate will not show up to work.
And you think that all Republicans will come together for something like that?
I mean, if they've kind of shown that they will hold together. I mean, look at any bill they've recently passed in the last administration or this one. It was party line on everything that was any kind of importance to like the public headlines. So I think they would, if they tried to force that and they tried to do these changes that really hurt a lot of their states, they'll just like, you know what?
I mean,
we're just not going to show up to work.
That's definitely good to know. I mean, and it's nothing against like just against Democrats or anything like that. It's just, there needs to be balance.
Well, those powers are there in the government. And it is one of the things that it's good to see. But then now it's also knowing that they have that option. So when somebody says like, oh, the Republicans are just letting them do whatever, it's like they are obviously agreeing because those tools are there in their tool basket if they didn't. So understand when they say they pass a party line, they're agreeing to that party line because they're showing up to work.
Yeah.
They could actually, if they hated it that much, they could just say, you know what, we're not going to show up and vote on this stuff. So just know that by some support, by them showing up, is showing that, well, we could stop it if we really hated it that much, but we're not going to do that because it would just take the government in a whole different direction. So,
well, it's a nice little threat there that, either we come together or this could get ugly kind of thing.
Yeah, and I was watching some of Biden's his first address to the nation yesterday, and he talked about, he threw out some stats, and I wanted to look it up, but I didn't get the chance, of like how many times the filibuster's been used. He was like between like 1920 when it was founded to like 1980 or something like that, there was only like 30 filibusters
Yeah.
or something like that. But in the last, I think he said from like 2000, what was it, 2008 to 2018, it'd been used like 200 times. It's being abused. It's being abused. It's
Of
like,
course.
well, obviously, it's like you look at the last this administration, the past two, and like the other side doesn't like the rules that are being passed, and they're trying to force things down each other's throats without doing any bipartisan. So of course, there's going to be a filibuster to it. So,
Well, as long as there keeps being checks and balances. Some more good news for Texas is for especially for the real estate market and everything is legislation backed by casino giant would allow casinos and sports gambling in Texas. So right now there's a proposal that will create special casino licenses for 4 destination resorts in DFW, Houston, San Antonio, and Austin. So you have your major metros all have are going to have the licenses, and it will establish these resorts slash casinos. Legislation would require amending the Texas Constitution, which currently bans most gaming in Texas. That is only possible with a 2/3 vote of lawmakers in both chambers, and then voter approval in November election. Man, so it's going to take a lot of votes to get that passed.
that's a very tall, and that was one of the things I liked about the last legislature they did when they amended the Texas state constitution to not have an income tax.
Mm-hmm.
Like to where it was just like a kind of a don't bring your politics here kind of mentality. Like you will not bring an income tax here to raise taxes on people. You need to do it a different way.
Yeah.
Because they were able to get 2/3 majority and voter approval across it to where they start doing politics, like to get 2/3 majority, like that's really tall task to do, especially if you have a division between an old guard, new guard, the way it used to be with new people coming in.
Yeah.
Where like it would take a very long time to get super majorities of one party to force out the other side, and then still to have to get approval from the public. They change that.
Yeah. And then you have for this plan you have Las Vegas Sands, which is one of the biggest investors, owners of everything casino based. Founded by GOP mega donor Sheldon Adelson, has spent the past few months building a massive push at the Capitol, spending millions of dollars to hire nearly 6 dozen lobbyists.
It's God.
It's
Coming in full force there.
Oh, they really want it. The bill filing deadline for the Bennial?
Just move on.
Yeah, legislative session, which got underway in January, is Friday.
Biannual?
It says Bennial. Annual.
I think it's supposed to be biannual.
One thing that I realized,
that's what it is.
as we read so many articles, how many like spelling errors there
Actually
are
make it,
in
and then they can tell
grammar.
you, yeah, because
like,
in your eyes, when you're reading it, not speaking out loud, you just skim right through. You know
Yeah.
what to talk about. When I'm reading it out loud, I'm like, God, that sentence didn't make sense when you read it out loud.
Yeah. We appreciate the work of the bill's sponsor, and we are excited to engage in further discussion with elected leaders and community stakeholders on the possibilities for expanding Texas tourism offerings through destination resorts. Andy about the Las Vegas Sands senior vice president said. The legislation calls for a land and development investment of at least $2 billion in DFW and Houston, and as well as $1 billion in San Antonio and Austin. The destination resort licenses will be considered Class 1 license. The legislation would then create 3 Class 2 licenses for limited casino gaming at horse race tracks in Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. Yeah, and San Antonio. After that, 2 Class 3 licenses would be made available for similar limited casino gambling at Greyhound tracks in Corpus Christi and Harlandale. So, I mean, they're trying to bring these resorts. They're trying to bring gambling, which, you know, we know is a big moneymaker for.
Well, it's a big moneymaker for a lot of people.
Yeah. So,
state legislation. I mean, you look at that, it's like they bring, and it's kind of funny. You look at it like, what a better time to propose this when you just went through an economic depression where you need money for state and local governments and stuff like that.
yeah.
So it's like, hey, you want a new revenue source? Here's something you can make a new revenue source on. Just like the legalization of marijuana is another one. Like you look at Colorado, like the amount of money the state makes off of that is huge. But I mean, I'm for it to the sense that like I'm not a gambler by any means, but those resorts that those things are on that they're proposing are pretty sweet actual resorts. Like they're massive mega complexes of it's not just a few slot machines and stuff like that that you have in just like a gambling floor.
Yeah.
Usually you have like entertainment aspect attached to those
Or-
things that are
Well,
very nice and
it's
cool.
a full-fledged resort. So I mean, a
Yeah.
resort is not just casinos. I mean, they're gonna have a lot of. There's gonna be entertainment. That's gonna be also huge for the people that
Well,
live
then
here.
the people that the businesses that make their business next to those resorts
Exactly.
because it's all based around entertainment and things to go do. I mean, you look at the success of the Rim here in San Antonio. When I first moved here, there wasn't a whole lot out there. But now
Yeah.
you got the Andretti experience, you got the iFlies, you got the Top Golfs, and you got the new bars, entertainment, the restaurants that are popping up around there. That it's like it's a full-fledged entertainment district that's like, hey, looking for a night out, I don't just go watch a movie at the Palladium. I was like, no, I can go to the Palladium, watch a movie, then I can head over to Top Golf for some late night golfing or something like that. Or if you got kids, go do the gaming that has the adult aspect of the go-karts around it. So like that, I
Well,
think it's a cool
I
idea.
mean, and so just to finish up this article, you have Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has been far more pessimistic, saying the last month that he has never been in favor of expanding gambling, and the upper chamber is nowhere close to having the votes for it. But they did some polling, and they say about 41% of Texans support the expanding on gambling. So
Long ways from 2/3 though.
you talk about how this makes sense and everything, but then we talk about like always the politics of all of these things, right? The politics of everything. That's like so, especially for San Antonio. San Antonio got hit really hard because of the hospitality industry, right? We
Yeah.
have a lot of conferences, we have a lot of tourism, we have a lot of things that are driven by hospitality, and that got so hurt when
Well,
COVID
that's one of
happened.
the things I saw an article on that I never put it in here, but they talked about like the recovery of that industry is very got some facing some significant challenges, headwinds.
Yeah.
Where when like people got fired from that industry and just like at no fault of their own lost their jobs in the snap of a finger, they're not going to go back to that job. They've gone. They're like, no, that was too risky. I don't want to be in that position again anymore. I'm going to move on and find a different job, get more training, more schooling, so I don't have to worry about being shut down because of a pandemic.
Yeah.
Kind of situation to where like they're saying like it's gonna be very hard to fill those jobs because there's gonna be higher costs with it because now to coax people back to that industry, they're gonna have to raise prices to pay those people to get them to come to work. So it is one of those things that like,
Or automate.
huh?
Or automate.
I don't know how a mom and pop restaurant automates, but
Yeah. Well, that's what the problem that we always talk about is that those are the businesses that get destroyed. Is the mom and pop restaurants, the mom and pop shops that can't implement the things that the big companies can.
yeah.
So you keep having more and more big corporate chains, and you keep losing that hometown feel and vibe because you keep pushing the small businesses out of business.
Yeah. Can't afford to
So
operate.
it just makes no sense. And to talk about more stupid decisions, let's talk about Florida. So Florida South Beach implements a curfew
It's old news.
during spring break. This happened last week.
Yeah. Like early last week.
Still last week. But they implement this curfew in Florida, and you have South Beach has a different mayor than Miami has. So it's like,
South Beach is its own town.
yeah, it's its own politics and all that. I didn't know. I thought South Beach was just South Beach part of Miami.
I
Like kind
didn't
of like
know
saying,
either.
I don't know, like the River Walk. You know what I mean? It's still San Antonio. Like I didn't think that it was its own thing.
Yeah.
But they implemented a curfew, and they announced it literally the day before. So you already had a shit ton of people that were there for spring break, caught themselves outside of the city, and they shut down the highways. So they couldn't even get back into South Beach because of these curfews that they implemented from one day to the next.
Shut
and-
the roads down?
They shut down the highway. So the 8 p.m. curfew in South Beach Entertainment District, and the 10 p.m. shutdown of the eastbound lanes of the MacArthur, Julia Tuttle, and Venetian causeways will remain in effect all the way until like April 14th, I think they said. So you have residents, hotel guests, and local business employees are exempt from causeway closures, but you have residents that says, what are you doing? Residents cannot get home to their children and families. This is unacceptable, poorly planned, and dangerous situation. We have been sitting in the causeway for 2 hours not moving. What is the point of this? Why even let us on the causeway to begin with? So there were people that were stuck literally in the highway until the next morning, that it just wasn't budging. Like,
That's
talk
terrible.
about, and during spring break, you understand? And they talk about all the shit that they talk about. Like, you have the interim city manager who imposed the spring break measures Saturday needed commission support to extend them for more than 72 hours prior allowed in city code. He said the measure will seek to contain the overwhelming crowd of visitors and the potential for violence, disruption, and damage to property.
Yeah, let's shut people down to where they can't get their families and kids and stuff, and that'll stop people from being violent and angry and causing damage.
Plus, this is not something that you said, hey guys, back in February, January, come spring break, we're shutting down. No, they did this that weekend.
Yeah.
People were already there.
Yeah.
So
they didn't anticipate the crowd. It's like, yeah, you've kept everyone cooped up, and then you have the one state that like has great beaches and is open and known for its party scene.
Known for spring
break. What do
break.
you think is gonna happen?
Yeah, they're known for spring break. They're known for all that. So what's funny is like they closed down the streets, and the people, they're like, "Fuck you." They still went out. There were thousands of people.
Oh
on the
yeah,
street.
I saw that. Yeah, like curfew's at 8 p.m. and like by 9 p.m. there's still thousands of people like in the middle of the streets. Like we're not doing it. They wound up having to shoot pepper balls into the crowds to get them to disperse.
And then you had the police that were going in there with their four-wheelers and everything, trying to disperse. They would disperse and then form again right behind them or in another street. But I was like, how poorly planned and executed. It's half-assed, half-brained. At this point, we don't want the spread. We don't want the spread of COVID. I mean, you saw the crowds, thousands of people. Not one person was wearing a mask. Yeah. I mean, guys, come on. I'm not saying you shouldn't have put a curfew or anything but you got to do this in a more planned way. Like, you can't just say, oh, hey, tomorrow we're going to shut down Miami.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, just especially like shutting down the roads. That were like people can't get back into the town after that time.
They didn't want people in the at nighttime. They didn't want them in the city, in the downtown.
Yeah, it's like, or at least like, hey, checkpoint. You got to have a driver's license that says you live here.
Yeah.
Like just like they do at the border. Like, what's your business?
Well,
here?
supposedly they say they did, but how are you filtering that when the whole highway is shut down?
Well, it's also there's so many people trying to get into that town. It's like, oh, there
isn't a lane open for people.
Like, there's like 9 people here that don't belong here. How do you run them back around to go the other way when you got? Yeah.
So, I mean, but you go back to just poor planning, poor policy, and then how this affects the businesses. I mean, you talk about like businesses still trying to recover. Spring break, one of the biggest times for tourism, people to come, and it's like, oh, you're shut down.
Or San Antonio, where they pushed off Fiesta.
Yeah.
Or they canceled it for 2020, and they moved Fiesta to like end of the year. Yeah. Or I think they moved it to like June or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, so far, but they still canceled like the parades. They're doing, I don't know what it is, but they said that they're gonna look at it again in June.
Yeah.
So it's not official that it's even coming back.
So I do have one article that I think is good news for San Antonio or business owners and small businesses. Like City Hall dealt setback in legal fight over paid sick leave. So something for those that don't know, I think it was 2018. The San Antonio City Council approved the forcing businesses to provide paid sick leave to their employees, not by choice, but by force, saying if you employ more than 5 people, you have to provide paid sick leave or be fined or have licenses revoked or anything like that. So it was no longer a benefit to coax employees to you. They were saying, nope, that we're going to take it into our hands. We're going to force you to, at your expense, pay people to not come to work so many days a week.
Yeah.
And immediately business coalitions came together and sued over that. And they basically got a moratorium put against it. And it's been kind of stuck up in legal battles ever since. And now they've been dealt like a kind of a, not a final blow, but one head away from just being driven the nail in the coffin. The Fourth Court of Appeals in San Antonio on Wednesday affirmed a temporary injunction preventing the Alamo City from implementing a mandatory paid sick leave ordinance. And we are disappointed that the appeals court agreed with the trial court. City Attorney Andy Segovia said, "We will be reviewing our legal options going forward and monitoring any state and federal legislation that would protect workers in San Antonio." That was their side. San Antonio lawyer Kelly Kubeta said the latest court decision is a big win for the businesses. Any attempt by the city of San Antonio in the future to impose a similar type of mandatory employment paid benefit will also be deemed unconstitutional, she said. Still, the city could appeal to the Texas Supreme Court, which in June 2020 let stand a 2018 lower court ruling that a similar ordinance in Austin, so they've already tried this once, and got it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court stood by the lower court's ruling in Austin that it was a similar ordinance was unconstitutional. The move did not put an end to the long-running legal debate, but they basically said, like, hey, we're going to stick with these lower court decisions. The city of San Antonio approved the ordinance in August 2018. It was originally slated to take effect on August 1st, 2019. So we're 3 years past, almost 3 years past when they passed it, and 2 years past when they said it's going to be implemented, and it's been held up in courts this entire time, and now has made it all the way up to the appellate courts where they agree with the injunctions that are being put in place. It's like, that's a good win for people, because I think it's terrible when politicians try to come together and force businesses to do things. It's no longer like we're talking about. It's no longer a benefit. It's just like, no, you're forced to do that, where every business that has more than a few people have to have paid sick leave.
And you kill competitiveness as well, right? Because it's like, if you're a business that maybe the way you function, you can provide it, now it becomes you a more favorable business for people to want to work for.
Yeah.
But now if it's just standard practice, and the biggest issue with the paid sick leave, with all these things, is like, it's not that businesses, like right now we have a few people that like we have VAs that they're in the Philippines, and then you have Good Friday coming and all that. And they ask, like, they're Catholic, they're like, can we take this time off, right? Can we take the time off? Will it be paid? So it's like, I like that that's up to the business to decide. Where it's like, look, I want to employ you. I want to do all this. But it's also, if I can't pay you for you to not work, you understand, I should have the right to. And then you should have the right to decide, do you want to stay home or do you want to go to work and make that money? You understand? Yes, we are going to pay them to take Friday off. But I told them, I was like, because they wanted Thursday and Friday off and paid. I was like, look, I'll meet you halfway. I want you to, I'll pay you Thursday, but I want you to work because I need you to work. And I'll pay you and you can take off Friday. You understand? Like, we try to give and take with our VAs, and we try to take care of our employees. Yeah, we try to take care of them. We try to give them benefits as much as we can. We would love to give healthcare, but when you look at healthcare, it's like,
well, it's a benefit. It's like I can't afford it.
It's like another employee.
It's not like you and I are driving around in a brand new Ford Raptors or anything like that, that we're just sucking all the money. It's like, you take money away from me to unproductive, because that's exactly what that would be. Paid sick leave, unproductive drain on your
100%.
in cash flow. And especially down to like, if you had like 5 employees, like, you're not killing it with 5 employees by any means. And now you have to, for all 5 of them, provide them like, I think it was like 2 weeks or like a week's worth of paid, like 40 hours a week at $15 an hour times 5 employees. Like, there's thousands of dollars that go to your bottom line that you can't now reinvest into your business to provide a better working environment and growth and better benefits in the long-term future.
Those are the things that, you know, I always, ever since I've always heard when people go to work and everything, how they have paid sick leave, they have, 401ks, they have healthcare, they have all that. And I've always thought about it. I'm like, man, it's going to be great when we can offer that, because to me, I think that's a great advantage to a business owner, to be able to offer benefits that can bring you the best employees, the best workers to your company. So it's an incentive to me as a business owner to be able to get to that point as quickly as I can, so I can bring the best people.
Yeah.
But now if you're making it mandatory, one, you're probably going to keep, again, putting out of business the small businesses that can't afford it, or
they're small
shrinking
businesses. Like, I have 4 employees. I can't afford to hire the 5th one, because not only do I have to cover their payroll, but now I have to be able to do all of the paid sick leave on top of that. So it's not just $40,000, $50,000 for that employee. Nope. It's now I got to be able to cover $80,000, $90,000 because I'm going to lose all that paid sick leave potentially that I got to be able to cover.
Well, and then it's also that premise. And one thing that we're seeing now as we're hiring is that a lot of people, they're like, well, if you're hiring, it's because you're making a lot of money. Not necessarily. There's a lot of times you're hiring because there's the growth potential.
It's
but
also that thing we talk about. It's like if you had the money every time you wanted to do an expansion, like things would be so much easier. But that's not how
100%,
business
no.
expand. Like they take risks, they invest, they run a negative cash flows, taking a bet that I can make that person perform. We can perform better to where I can cover their salary and have the growth back. But that
Exactly.
first 6 months, I got to adjust to that. I got to figure it out. Like, especially as you're starting, you don't have those systems, processes, and the know-how, knowledge, and mindset to grow those things.
And that's also assuming that that employee works out right
Yeah,
away.
it works out.
I mean, how many times you hire somebody and then, a few weeks later you end up having a fire and hire somebody else. Now, the amount of time that it takes to bring that person in, to train them, to get them going. During that time, you're essentially losing money because they're not producing. You're training them. You're working through all this. You're still putting in more work. You're not doing the work that you used to because now you got to do their work as well until they get it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so much lost revenue there for the business owner. Yet what you're saying is like, well, let's just keep hammering you.
Yeah.
You understand? Where if you wanted to do something like that, I think it, again, going back to trying to think things through, there should be some form of threshold that needs to be met and not just an employee count. Because having more employees does not mean that you have more money.
Yeah, and
You
that's what
understand?
just
Like,
blew my mind. Is like, okay, if you have 400 employees and you're traded publicly here or something like that, it's like you have the ability to adapt you have a wide, vast range of ability to take revenue and reallocate it towards other things.
when you get different, you have better benefits as far as compensation packages.
Yeah.
You have like bigger discounts.
Exactly.
It makes
But
sense.
it's like down to like 5 or 7 or 10 employees, whatever it is, like that's not a lot of people, especially like if you're a restaurant and now they're trying to make them classified as employees to like to get away from like the wage requirements for those and on tips. It's like, dude, you would just decimate so many small businesses that it's like 10 employees, your owner's probably not like really killing it driving around. I'm sure there are some, but they try to focus on those people. But I think it's more of a like 90-10. There might be 10% that are really killing it off of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 employees. But I think the majority of them are not.
Well,
because it's not easy to do.
You got to start getting creative. You got to start. This is one thing that I told Brian when I lived in Argentina and Spain, that they have these kind of laws. They're more of that socialism, borderline communism kind of politics. And like people get creative and they start figuring out illegal ways to avoid those things, right? So you start forcing businesses to do illegal activities just so they can stay in business.
Yeah.
Because trust me, I was there. They weren't making a killing. All right. They weren't driving brand new vehicles. They were just surviving, and they were doing so many illegal things. Because even if you say, "Oh, well, I'll hire these people as subcontractors or something like that," no, the IRS can tell. The IRS can tell if they have like set tasks and things like that showing up. They know that they're an employee, and they're gonna force you to make the change. You understand? So it's like it gets to a point where it's like, well, maybe these people got to be off the books. Maybe we got to figure out a different way of doing this. You know what I mean? Because it's like either that or you just go out of business. So I think, going back to all what we say, government is extremely inefficient, and they need to try to at least sit down for a little bit and try to think through the process.
Yeah, and
a
like
little
really
more.
figure out like what is the impact on people like you're trying to help. And it's just like that's the thing that I don't like about government. We've talked about it. When they get in the mess, they usually don't understand something and they overstep and have consequences to people that, like, dude, that was a completely beneficial way of doing business to the economy, to people's livelihoods. But because you didn't understand it, you didn't take the time to understand it, you're too busy, you made something obsolete that was beneficial.
Well, and it's also the same shit that we talk about. That, one thing goes wrong and they make the one case the rule.
Like saying it's across the board.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, no, that's the exception. Shouldn't be the rule. Like that was just one thing that happened.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. So
as we're getting close to the 2-hour mark, we haven't talked to our boy Elon Musk lately.
What?
And did you see his new title? I've heard
Title?
about it. His title, like CEO, CFO,
Oh.
Chief Financial Officer, and stuff like that. In a filing, SEC filing, mind you, this month, Elon Musk gave himself a new title, TechnoKing of Tesla. In the same filing, he dubbed the company's CFO, Zach Kirkhorn, Master of Coin. Because like apparently,
He's just having fun.
oh yeah, so and I heard that, I just started laughing. I was like, because you can change the name for whatever you want. And it's like, where do these things come from? Like, how do these people like come up with these names? Everyone's like, I want to be CEO, and he's just like, you know what? I'm the Techno King. Like my CFO now, like that's my Master of Coin. And I just thought that was funny. So, be that you can be used. But you can be sure of one thing. Musk didn't run this one past HR. Can you imagine? And for sure, some pinstriped suit, button-down bureaucrat at the SEC headquarters on F Street in DC is still running around trying to see where those titles fit in. Rebellious, free wealth, absolutely. What else do you expect from Elon Musk? Certainly not compliance, predictability, or conformity that would carry the same likelihood as sending a rocket into space that would launch 11 satellites and then come back to Earth, driving in reverse and landing backwards on solid ground from Earth or here on Mother Earth. Oh wait, Musk did that, didn't he? No one ever did that before. Not NASA, not Boeing, not Russia, no one. Elon Musk, Techno King of Tesla, did. And I just thought that was just so funny. I was
That's
like,
hilarious.
oh my God, that's so funny. And then I saw somebody try to flip that into cancel culture. I was like, really? You can't just have a good laugh at it because the word,
Oh,
where does the word
course.
chief come from?
Oh no. Yeah.
Going back to
Native
Native
Americans.
Americans, and we're like a chief of a tribe and stuff like that. And then tied it into like Washington Redskins, why they got rid of it because it's discriminatory towards
Well, they're trying to get rid of the term master bedroom.
master bed. They brought that in. It's like, well, it's not master bedroom. It's primary bedroom because that most people master insinuates that you own slaves. It's like, do,
Well,
like,
and
do
then
the majority
where
of people
does
really
the term
find that
bedroom
offensive?
come? What if you don't want to put a bed in that room? Does it still count as a
God,
bedroom?
like
But
we
you
went
want to
last
sleep
week,
there?
like where does it
What if you put
stop?
a hammock? Now is it the primary hammock room? Like, come on, people. That's
It's like it's a name. Like where it was originated, but it's not why it was originated in the past is not what it means today. I was
Yeah.
like, so just get the small minority of people that control the media that try to make headline news go run with this stuff.
People are bored.
And I was like, man, you ruined a really funny topic. I was laughing at the
Yeah.
start of it, and there's like, well, let's think about that. And it was like, oh no, and like chief executive officer.
How can we get offended by
oh
this?
my God.
How
I was
can we
like,
look at this and be appalled by what he did? Because we cannot look at it for what it is. Let's be offended and let's raise a fuss about this.
oh, but I just
That's
thought
where
like Techno King and Master of Coin. And I was
that's
like,
where I
oh,
think
that's hilarious.
we all need to make sure that we are standing up and voicing ourselves in objection to all this nonsense. Because if we keep staying quiet just because we don't want the confrontation, it keeps getting worse and worse for everybody. So and by all means, I am not saying that you should go out cursing people out or nothing like that. There's an educated way of saying stop. You understand? Like just stop. Like with this whole nonsense of everything needs to be canceled because it triggers anybody and everybody. Like just stop. Grow a thicker skin, grow a backbone. Like let's just kind of, let those things between your legs drop a little bit and start owning what the hell is being said. Like stop being so emotional about everything. Because it's getting to a point where now it's like you can't even speak your mind because you're gonna offend people and it might affect your business negatively.
Yeah.
So
I mean, a couple other good things that just pointing topics of from the Biden administration from yesterday's goals. Their first was 100 million shots in the first 100 days. They reached that in like 53 days, and now they're setting a new goal to hit 200 million shots in the first 100 days. And then he directed the states to make all adults eligible for the vaccine by May 1st. So it's kind of one of the things like they are taking hold of this, and like there's an end in sight because now the new administration that is Democratic, which most of the media companies are now trying to push this thing past and push this thing through. So where it's like things are going to start opening up. The mandates are going to start going away. It's going to become old news. It's not there anymore. I can now go into quick trips and not be forced to wear masks. So I think that's cool. Got a lot of my business from that. But that's good news too.
yeah, well, yeah, it seems like some form of normalcy is coming back into play. So it's definitely going to be good. I saw that New Braunfels tubing is opening up, and they're saying we're in full swing. They are going to be expecting social distancing. I'll be
On a river.
curious to see how you
Yeah.
enforce that. And I think it's just like everything. They're gonna be saying
They
that
throw it in the thing. We require you to do it, but we know nobody's going.
now.
Cover them that they're going to do it.
One thing that I would say is that you need to stop being so stupid. And if you're gonna go tubing and people are not social distancing, you cannot get your feelings hurt because you got to understand.
You're tubing on a river.
Exactly. Like you cannot be so appalled by things that are very common sense. That's what's gonna happen.
Now, you're getting
So
back to the point towards like if you don't want to go somewhere, don't go and don't
don't
complain
go.
for other people. Like if you're mad that people aren't wearing masks at restaurants or at gas stations, go somewhere else.
100%.
Go to a store that requires people to do that. I'm gonna go to Quick Trip where I don't have to.
Yep. So with that being said, Roddy826 says, my first time listening in. Great conversation, guys. Well, sir, I appreciate you listening in. And thank you all for listening live to Coffee with the Johns. We will be back every Friday, 8 a.m.
Except for April 22nd. That'll be on a Thursday.
What?
Except for April 22nd. That one will be on a Thursday. I'm gone that Friday.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you'll know ahead of time. But usually every Friday, 8 a.m., we are live bringing you all the trends, headlines, and everything that impact you and your business and your investing. So stay tuned, hit subscribe, hit that bell notification so you get notified every time we go live. And with that being said, we will catch you all next week.